Ron Latz is an industry veteran. He has been doing legal marketing for the last 15 years, starting with Reuters, and he knows a ton about growing legal businesses. He has bazillion clients. He's been doing consulting and fractional CMO work, meaning a person who thinks about your marketing day in, day out. He's been in those roles for a few years now, and he has glorious reviews on his LinkedIn profile. Ron Latz, Latz. This is not a commercial for Ron, although it should be. This is a commercial for this podcast episode because you should listen to it and you will learn a few technical things about marketing that will help you make better decisions with your marketing for your law firm. Enjoy the episode. Hi there. I have a small but really meaningful favor to ask you. I watch at the stats on our YouTube channel and Spotify channel, wherever most people listen and watch our podcast. And I see that over 80% of everybody who listens to it regularly is not a subscriber. I'm asking you to subscribe to this channel. And the reason for that is my mission and the mission of my team is to help as many small law firm owners to learn how to transform their law firms into better businesses, and so they in turn enjoy better lives. When you hit subscribe button, you tell these platforms that this is content worth listening, worth viewing, and they in turn will show it to many other small law firm owners and hopefully help me fulfill our mission of helping them create a better business and enjoy better lives. So would you please do me this favor? It would mean the world to me. And hit the subscribe button. And my promise to you is that I will continue to work hard at creating good content with practical ideas that help you and your teams grow better law firms. Thank you. Welcome to another episode of Grow Law Podcast. I have a great guest with me here today, Ron Latz of LegalFenix. Despite his youthful looks, he has been around legal marketing for 15 years, give or take. I think you started with Fine Law back in 2011-ish. Is that right?
Correct.
Awesome. And all throughout the years, you are now at the point where you're a fractional CMO to a great deal of fairly sizable law firms. And many of them have praised you on your LinkedIn profile. If you look up Ron Latz, Latz, on LinkedIn, you will see a ton of praise left to you by your clients. And some of those notes are incredibly impressive. I think the most recent one is from a PI attorney who's been practicing for 41 years and said that he has never seen marketing results like he has seen with you in a relatively short span of time, under a year. Ron, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. First time I've been actually complimented on the younger look, so I'll take that all day, every single day with young kids running around. It doesn't feel like that, but as long as we present on video well, it's great.
You do. And listen, when you drop off your oldest at college, which is what I did 3 weeks ago, you will feel a hell of a lot older. A hell of a lot older. Like my kid's in college now.
Well, that is a big accomplishment. And that is, listen, the stages of life, right? So even when they were going off for their first day of first grade a week ago, it's bittersweet. It's great to get some normalcy and some quiet in the house during business hours, but it's also like, now I can't pop out and just have quick lunch with them like I did on the summer, or, they've got to get ready in the morning. So it's a little bit more down to business.
It was very bittersweet, but when you said normalcy at the house, so my kids are 18, 15, and 16 months. There's no normalcy at the house.
No.
It's always a little bit of a mayhem, and it's great. I love it.
Awesome. You were almost a free man there. Everyone was out of the nest. Now you got another one in.
One of my best friends of nearly 30 years, when I told him my wife is pregnant, there was a very long pause. Half a minute. And then he just asked, why? You were almost home free. Like, why would you do that? I was like, because we wanted to.
Yeah, you wanted to. Well, listen, I have twins, and that was one of the reasons why we didn't go for the third, because we were very nervous about having also the third and the fourth. So congratulations nonetheless. They're all great milestones, and wish him nothing but the best as he ventures out into this real world.
Thank you so much. And speaking of milestones, LegalFenix is a fairly new brand. You started about a year and a half ago. Why? What journey led you up to the point where you decided to start LegalFenix, and what problems does it solve? And I'm not trying to make it sound like a commercial for LegalFenix, but I read all those reviews. You really know this stuff. This could be very, very helpful to law firm owners who are pondering upon the question of like, why isn't my marketing not working the way that it did maybe a year or two ago? Or why is it not working as well as my competitors? Or so many whys that people are wondering about when it comes to marketing.
Sure. So there's a couple things here. One is I just rebranded and relaunched the company in
Mm,
2024. The initial version of it I had incorporated about 8.5 years ago, where it was much more of a side hustle and project where I was working with clients that I've developed relationships with since, dating back to my Reuters days, right? Offering consulting and advisory services. And after leaving Reuters and going out on my own, and then also helping rebuild a smaller boutique legal marketing shop. And I'm sure that you can have an appreciation for this. A lot of times, Sasha, we find the law firm pointing the finger at the agency for some sort of wrongdoing or why the marketing isn't working, as well as the reverse, whereas the agency might point the finger back at the law firm, rightfully or wrongfully so, but many times it could be related to service delivery, answer rates, like gaps or holes in the intake process. Regardless of what it was, I really wanted to put myself in a position where I could mediate amongst both sides because I do think that ultimately the goal is mutual success. So if I could help translate and articulate what the agency was doing, why they were doing it, when they were doing it, the reasons behind how they were doing it, why it mattered to the law firm, so that they can just kind of get out of their own way and let the agency do what they do best so that they can spend their time practicing law and running their businesses, and then also create a feedback loop for the agency where I can tell them this is what's working, what's not working, how many qualified or wanted leads we have, or this is what it looks like from a signups perspective. That's the feedback and the information that helps guide better, more strategic decisions for agencies. So when I sit in the middle there and essentially ensure that there's an accountability structure on both sides, we've just found that our offering is a product and a service that law firms can rely upon to try to get them into marketing that's actually going to work based off of the goals and objectives that they have, not someone else.
got it. There are so many challenges with marketing, and I find that most law firms that do end up hiring a marketing director or having a fractional CMO, for most law firms, having a full-time CMO may be a little bit of an overkill in terms of add on to the payroll roster, right? So fractional CMO will do for most law firms. But I find that usually those hires happen many, 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 many years into existence of the law firm. I think it should be one of the first hires, but it's usually very late in the game. Why do you think that is?
Well, everyone's situation is going to be unique and different. And to your point, that every single firm isn't necessarily ready or at that maturation phase of their just journey of a business is ready for a CMO or a C-level marketing executive. It's the exact reason why we offer a consulting and advisory service in addition to our fractional, because some just need some guidance. They want to ensure that their investments are protected. They get proposals, they get marketing reports. Many times they don't understand them. They don't get the expectation that is being set around performance, how long it's going to take to start seeing results, how this might have other downstream impacts. So we just have to have an offering where we can talk to these individuals and these lawyers so that they feel more confident about the investments that they're making. On the fractional side of the house, usually there is at least some sort of marketing resource internally. Could be a coordinator, a manager, a director. Many times it's a lawyer that is kind of sitting in the seat of CMO and driving the marketing because they are the face of the firm. When it gets to the point where they need to buy back a lot of that time so that they can build the business, keep hiring, practicing law, all the things that are very important to them, right? They look for a service like us so that they can still keep doing what they are doing, but have someone in their corner making sure that their investments are safeguarded.
That makes sense. We know that marketing game has gotten exponentially more complex over the last 25 years or so. If we were in business doing B2C law, like personal injury, criminal defense, estate planning, whatever it may be, 25 years ago, around 2000, our advertising mediums would be yellow pages.
Mhm.
And if we were in PI, probably billboards and maybe radio. And then we would network with other attorneys who were in position to send us business. But that was it.
Mhm.
Today, the array of channels that we could use to attract prospective clients is multitudes greater, multitudes greater. And I find that often law firm owners who are not marketers by trade are lost at what works and what doesn't work. And they invest into different and sometimes shiny objects because it's something latest and greatest. And then after some time, they see that it's not working and they're like, "Oh, that didn't work." And they go somewhere else. And sometimes the real reason why it didn't work is they didn't give it enough time or budget or effort from whatever marketing vendor that was working on it. In your view, as you work with multiple law firms and you have that advantage over me, I'm a search marketer. Search marketing is what my team does. So, in your view, today in 2025, if you and I were operating a B2C law firm like PI or criminal defense or any of those, what would really work well for us? Where would we allocate our most of our budget to?
Again, depending upon your goals and objectives, as well as your practice area and primary market, that's going to vary, very much across the board and across the country. I think one of the things that you had described there, as far as the difficulty around what is working, what's not working, where do I put my dollars, and where do I push my chips into play here, is the position that we are in. Because unlike you, I don't provide a search marketing product. I don't manage ads on behalf of the firm. I'm not building or redesigning websites. I'm never going to take any scope away from you, because by design, built the consultancy that way. So when I am talking to lawyers about where they should put their investment dollars, I'm coming at it from a purely vendor neutral perspective. For example, I can tell a firm, because I'm not going to then sell them the product. Listen, you should try paid search. It's going to take a $30,000 to $50,000 a month investment. Maybe you are in personal injury, you're looking for the roads and the wheels cases. But in this market, this is what it demands in order to be successful. And we've got to be able to maintain this investment for 6 to 9 months to see whether or not it's really working and we want to double down or pull out of the market. Right? I can say that to a firm and set that expectation and let them know that cost per lead, acquisition cost, it's going to be real ugly the first 2 to 3 months. And then as we start to optimize and pull levers in that campaign and get qualified leads and sign ups, right? We're going to start to see the unit economics be a little bit more attractive. And then once we're fully up and running, we've built traction, we know what levers to pull. Now that's where things start to look a little bit better. I don't then go to them and say, well, now you should buy that service from me too. So when I am recommending like what you should be doing today, I think it depends upon like how much of your total annual revenue you are allocating towards marketing. What is that percentage? And if you've got more money than time, you're probably going to be putting those dollars into a lot more marketing channels, depending upon the competitive landscape. And if you've got more time than money, you're probably going to be doing more grassroots sales, business development, networking types of approaches so that you can drive more referrals, because you don't have the dollars to play in the ads or the LSA market, or maybe it's a heavy hitting SEO landscape and you just don't have the funds in order to compete or to start seeing results in the amount of time that are going to satisfy your needs.
Sure. Let's run a hypothetical scenario.
Sure.
You and I, before we hit the record button, we were talking about a mutual acquaintance, Mr. Iowa, who was on this podcast just yesterday. Tim Simmelroth, he is in Dubuque, he's in Des Moines, and somewhere else in Iowa. Let's pick any one of those smaller markets, figure about 500,000 residents, and let's not focus on PI. So much PI talk. Let's focus on family law. In those smaller markets, divorce rate maybe 30-40%. So 30-40% of the market at one point or another will be a client to either our law firm or one of our competitors. What do we do today in 2025 to attract them?
Well, in those markets, right, depending upon like the digital landscape, I would be looking at how many other family and divorce lawyers are in these towns and what is their Google business profile, star rating, and review count to see if there is an opportunity to try to pick up some qualified leads, through the LSA channel. If they are performing well organically and locally, right, and they want to expand and consider something like paid search, they've just got to balance what that investment is going to be and look at what their first initial retainer is to see whether or not like X or Y amount of cases is going to produce a return that they are satisfied with. But especially in some of these smaller areas where you can lean into like local connections, community involvement, community engagement, start networking with other service professionals like the psychiatrists, the therapists, or accountants, real estate professionals, right? Because this is all tied back to, right, the family and divorce firm. These are other individuals in their stratosphere, right, in their ecosystem that they can be networking with. I would be making sure that all those people are also on an email list so I can own the distribution, not be beholden to an algorithm to show my content so I can stay top of mind, right? Like these are some of the things that more successful firms are leaning into, especially when there's like major national players. I know I'm going back to PI here, but you've got these national players that then dive into a market and they gobble up all the radio, the TV, the bus wraps, the park, the benches, right? All of it. They throw tons of money at it. The way that you can beat those Goliaths is by getting into the trenches and being actively involved and showing like you are part of that community. And some of those bigger firms just aren't willing to play there.
Mm. You've mentioned staying in front of them, and I know that you do newsletters. There is a resurging trend in popularity of newsletters. For those who do not know, it's kind of flying under the radar, but I just came back from a huge marketing conference inbound by HubSpot, and their prominent figures were like, newsletters are back in. They're popular once again. So when you say staying in front of all of these professionals, real estate agents, other lawyers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, being a member of the community, I know that one of the questions that people would push back with would be like, what do I say?
I get the same question when someone is asking or inquiring about potentially being more active on LinkedIn. Like, you've got a ton of experience, a ton of expertise, you've got a ton of stories. As a lawyer, you are building a business, you are hiring people, you are purchasing technology, you are servicing clients, right? You went to law school, you might have had a bunch of other jobs before you came into practice. You might have been at big law and now you started your own shop, hung up your own shingle. There are so many, there's no, you are living your experience, right? You are you and nobody else is, and sharing whether it's the trials and tribulations, the success stories, the experiences that you're going through, building in public. Those are all interesting things that other people, they do care about.
Mm.
It's just whether or not you're willing to put yourself out there, especially on a newsletter where it's a lot people that have opted in, right? I'm not saying you go and buy a list and add 20,000 people to your distribution list. But if these are people that opted in because they saw you at an event, they submitted a form on your website, right? You network, you saw them at a conference or maybe at a CLE, you know them from the bar association, right? Like most of those individuals are opting in. They're raising their hand and telling you that they want to hear from you, right? So you can work with other companies that can ghostwrite the content for you if you can't find the time of day to do something like that. But I do think that a newsletter, and I'll tell you a quick story. I write content on LinkedIn. I've been doing it almost daily for 4.5 years.
Wow.
And it's been one of the primary drivers of my business. And after I felt like I got to a point where I could rely upon a certain amount of visibility, I started bolting on additional channels, just like I would recommend to my clients. I kind of not mastered, but I got to a certain degree with LinkedIn that I then started, right, going after podcast guest opportunities. And then I did the newsletter, and then I did the webinar. Like I added these things on, and now I use them all together to create, kind of a flywheel. But back to the story here. We talked earlier about my good friend and colleague, Charlie Mann. He owns an agency called Red Kraken Creative, which also just does all newsletters for lawyers. But about a year and a half, 2 years ago, he had said to me, like, Ron, and he might remember it a little bit differently, but what I heard was, like, how do you not have a newsletter if you are producing content for LinkedIn every single day? It was just one of those moments, like the question you asked me earlier, like, Ron, you only have 3 of these webinars on your website, but you've got them all on YouTube. Like, why are they not all on your website? It was just one of those, Sasha, where I just said to myself, Charlie, you're right. Like, I've got all this content. I'm doing it daily. I can at least do a weekly email, and next Friday will be 52 consecutive weeks that that I'm doing.
Congratulations. Have you
So
ever thought about doing paper and ink newsletter?
again, it's another Charlie, great legal marketing, Ben Glass thing, like the snail mail print newsletter. Um,
It lands very differently.
it is a pattern interrupt, and even if they take that out of the mailbox, look at it and throw it away, like they saw your face, they saw your logo, they saw your name,
And
and
it cost you $1.50.
and right, you printed it out, you paid for postage, and now hopefully you're maintaining that top of mind presence, because no matter what, like, that's still going to hit their inbox, their mailbox
Yeah.
every single month.
So I believe Ben Glass learned that approach from Dan Kennedy, who is an iconic marketer who
Yes,
everybody in the industry knows and loves or should know and will
yes,
fall in love if they get to meet him. His approach, Dan Kennedy's approach to writing newsletters. First of all, they have to be paper and ink. Otherwise, they're not going to get the same visibility. So if you, Mr. or Mrs. Law Firm owner, are considering like a newsletter, yes, a newsletter, preferably paper and ink. And there is a magic formula that Dan Kennedy taught me. First time I was at one of his conferences, roughly 15, 16 years ago. And he said, your newsletter should be broken apart into 50, 35, 15. 50% PBS, educational content. 35% Comedy Central, entertaining content. 15% QVC, this is where you sell your shit. It's like, that's the formula. If you break it down like that, your newsletter, if you succeed, is going to become great bathroom reading material. I remember those words like they were spoken yesterday because it struck a chord. If it's interesting, they are going to take it to the bathroom with them. And if you get that intimate with your content, with them, they will remember you. And if you deliver that newsletter, paper and ink, without a fail, every single month, they will get to interact with you, with your content, every single month. And I didn't know that Charlie Mann does newsletter now. I believe he was with Great Legal Marketing some time ago, and that's where I saw him. That's how I know the name. I do not know the guy personally. But it's a very interesting concept. I definitely, for almost anyone, do not recommend that they create their own newsletter. There are people who will do it at a fraction of a cost, at a fraction of a time. It will look a hell of a lot more professional, and it will not be another item on your never, ever, ever ending to-do list. Now, switching from paper and ink, I want to get your take on the latest and greatest, which is AI search.
Hmm.
What are you seeing there? And when I say AI search, for those of you who are hearing this and not sure because you have heard a million different things about AI, not sure exactly what that means, it means I am in Des Moines, Iowa. I need a divorce lawyer. And instead of going to Google or calling a friend or texting a friend, I will go to ChatGPT or Google's Gemini or Perplexity and be like, who's the best lawyer near me?
Mhm. Real quick before we jump into AI, to finish off that newsletter note, I would highly recommend as a resource, since it's lawyers that are mostly listening to this, is there is a fractional GC attorney, Jonathan Hawkins. He's in
Mhm.
Atlanta. He's got a newsletter called the One Drop, very similar to the uh, setup that you had described earlier, but very educational. There's, not like salesy selling within it. It's print, right? Good card stock, but it's for lawyers. That is something that I think is a really valuable resource and a great example of some of the things that you might be able to do and apply to your own practice. I go check it out. You can find him on LinkedIn. He's posting content almost daily.
Yeah, and I think his slogan is like lawyer for lawyers or something. He's a
Right, right.
business lawyer for law firm owners or
For law firm
lawyers.
owners, yeah. And his founding partner podcast is the podcast. Just a lot of good conversations and
Hmm.
content for other attorneys to consume. But as far as AI generated content and the AIOs or AI mode, the large language models, I think for the most part, we are finding that sound best practices for SEO um, is what is producing a lot of the results that we see in the prompt outputs. I think it's just another unit on the search engine results page where people no longer need to click through to the website. So it does make attribution and understanding, click flow to a website a little bit more difficult.
Hmm.
I think that it's going to have to improve from a local signals perspective because right now, local map pack, Google Business Profile, other directories, like a Yelp or even more local community driven through Facebook groups and things like that, or is where you get a lot of your hyper local content. You see a lot of these studies out there that are also saying, well, this is taking away from general search behavior and people going to Google. I think if you look at Rand Fishkin's recent information about this from SparkToro, and he commissioned some other studies, but it's somewhat showing the opposite in that now more people, yes, may start their query or prompt in a large language model, but after getting the output, doing due diligence and then fact checking, referencing whatever result they got back on a search using a search engine. So, time will tell to see how the search engine results pages kind of morph into this new um, like UI, if you will, like how it's going to appear. And AI mode is what the future really does look like, where it's a lot more conversational. Um, just be interesting to see how they're going to start really incorporating ads into that UI because that's going to be the next step. They don't
Yep.
want to sacrifice that revenue for much longer. They've got to
Yep.
figure out a way to sneak in those ads.
100%. Well, they'll already have an equivalent of a local map pack in ChatGPT. So you can see that map and you can see those listings for 3, 4 law firms. So it's very interesting. It's an ever evolving field. My team has been experimenting with it and building tools for it for the last 3 quarters. We're recording this in September, early September of 2025. So we started like Q3 of 2024, and we're about 9 months into this journey. And we're like, it's really, really has significantly evolved and improved over just the last almost 12 months. And yes, a lot of informational search absolutely takes place on ChatGPT just because informational search has become so much more intuitive, easier. You don't
Mm.
have to read it anymore. If you do not want to read it, you can just have a conversation on the fly. So ChatGPT and Google's Gemini and Perplexity are wonderful for those things. But interestingly, we keep on seeing that when it comes to making a commercial decision, like who am I going to hire? Who do I call? It goes like, okay, I'm going to put down my phone and I'm going to look at my laptop and I'm going to go to Google Maps. I'm
Mm.
going to look at the reviews. So the trust, like 95% of trust is still on Google and maybe 5% is on ChatGPT, but I do expect that that percentage will change. So if you are managing your law firm and you have heard the term of GEO, which is generative engine optimization, or any other variant that has to do with optimizing your law firm, I'm not even saying your website, but your law firm and its web presence across all of the channels to be found through ChatGPT and Gemini and Perplexity, and maybe something else will come out in the near future. I don't know. It is today. It's almost like 25, 28 years ago talking about the SEO. It was such a new thing and nobody understood it. And those who did understand and those who did invest, they have done tremendously better. Those early movers, they had the ginormous advantage that they did get found in Google. They did get leads at 5 cents a lead. They did convert cases at 50, 75 cents per case. Like ChatGPT is going to cost you a lot more to get featured there because, as you said, you really have to have an incredibly strong SEO foundation. General SEO, local SEO, you have to be prominently featured across numerous directories to be found there now. It's quite a bit of work, it's an investment, but if you're not making it, 5 years from now, maybe 3 years from now, you'll be like, why didn't I do it in 2025 when it was still relatively cheap? And in what I started talking about marketing 25 years ago, it was infinitely easier than it is today, and it just keeps getting more complex and thus more expensive. And my fear, and I wonder what your take on this is, that for new businesses, new law firms, or any other business entering into the arena, it soon may become prohibitively expensive
Mhm.
to get the business started because getting clients is just getting more complex, incredibly more expensive. What's your take on that?
I think that complexity is driven by the fact that 25 years ago, the customer's journey was much, much more linear. They could open the yellow pages, get the phone number, call the firm, get the consult, and be retained. Even 15, 16 years ago, when I got into the space and started working at Reuters, I could spin up a website, Sasha, that was 15, 20 pages, do a blog post every other week, and maybe get a directory listing. And those firms would crush within their markets, right? It just what was needed and what was required in order to compete just got exponentially more difficult. And the customer's journey is not linear. They are getting your name along with two or three others from a trusted individual in their close network, their circle, whether it's a service professional, another family member, or a colleague. They then go online and do their due diligence. At least the more sophisticated buyers are. They take those names, they look you up, they look at your website, they check out your social profiles. If you've got videos, they're going to consume those videos to try to get a feel of who you are as a person. And now with another avenue for individuals to, jump from social, web, video, TV, now into large language models and this more conversational type of search, it just highlights the importance of how you need to have a diversified portfolio and making sure that you are spending your time, money, and attention in the channels where your audience, your ideal client profile, is spending the most of their time. And that's
Sure.
where I think it becomes a little trickier. It's
Yeah.
making sure you've got the infrastructure in place to figure that out. Because if you're not then collecting both the qualitative and quantitative data, you're going to make decisions based off of, tech driven attribution, which might not be telling you the whole entire story. So that's another challenge that the firms run into
Sure.
this.
Sure. And even a greater challenge is when your prospective client never asks anyone for referrals. They just start on ChatGPT or Google or wherever else they decide to start, which most natural it would be first Google, then ChatGPT, then whatever other search platform. They never ask anyone for any advice. They just start looking. And if you're under invested in your marketing, it's one of the most expensive decisions you have ever made.
Yeah.
Like life is probably very, very difficult. Like living off of referrals is becoming more and more difficult, especially in the age where Gen Z and Gen Alpha, that's closely following Gen Z,
Mm-hmm.
they don't like to talk to people. And millennials are now in their early 40s. And just not that long ago, we thought of millennials as kids, like college kids, right? I'm Generation X. To me, millennials were like youngsters, right? But they're not youngsters, they're parents now, right? And they're making a very high percentage of the decisions in the economy now, right? That Gen Z is catching up. They're kids right now. Well, they're not kids anymore, right? So a lot of them are in their late teens now. So, or maybe even a little older, maybe early 20s. So
Mm-hmm.
soon they will be hiring their first attorney to do that real estate transaction or to get them off of DUI charge or
Mm-hmm.
to draft that prenup agreement or in a few years to do that divorce or whatever else it may be. And they're just not going to call anyone. They're only going to look at their phone. And they will not even, like I have a 15-year-old. He doesn't want to talk to the phone. He does everything by doing this. He just types away. So whenever he does any kind of search, it's like no words spoken. And he is a really social guy, not an introvert, like the exact opposite of introvert, extreme extrovert. Doesn't talk to the phone, never calls anyone ever unless he needs something now from mom. All other instances, it's texting, right? And typing something. So if you haven't invested in GEO yet, find, and I'm not making a plug for my company, find a reputable company that knows how to do it, that can show you a few success stories and can actually prove, like link what they've done to get their clients to be easily found in AI search. Again, today, September of 2025, it's your Chat GPT, it's Gemini, which is Google product. It's very good. It's not as good as ChatGPT for many things yet, but I believe because Google owns that hardware, or not the hardware rather, but the operating system, right? They're probably going to take over ChatGPT at some point, just because they're naturally embedded there, and Perplexity to like a small degree. So I think you really need to start investing there, because in a few years it will be infinitely more laborious and infinitely more expensive to get into that space. Any parting advice for the end of this episode, or do you want to say something else? Sorry, I cut you off
Well,
there
when
for
we
a
were
second.
talking about AI, I just don't think that it can be completely ignored, right? Like, do your best every single day. The advancements are significant, but if you don't at least try to incorporate it into some of your day to day, it could be with marketing,
Yeah,
it could be for operations and making SOPs, it could be just like basic organization, right? I'm not saying you have to go out there and build your own agent or build your own custom GPT or anything like that, but it's not that AI is going to replace a lot of the firms. It's the firms that are using AI that are going to replace a lot of the firms that don't use it, because of the advancements that you can get in the productivity and efficiency gains. And we didn't even get into a lot of like the legal technology and how AI is really getting folded into a lot of the matter management systems, the CRMs. Like, they are
everything.
doing things to make things life a lot easier. But at the end of the day, right, like when you are looking at all this stuff, it's got to go people, process, and then technology, right? Like,
Hmm.
people will try to take the technology and then force a process through whatever features or capabilities it has, and then just lay it on the people. No, your people, like that human element, that vulnerability, that empathy that you can essentially have towards another individual on a phone, and then using the technology to, be even better at what you do. Like, that's the winning formula. You can't
I,
abandon the people part of the process.
I agree, and I think that the future is exceptionally bright for those who embrace the changes.
Yeah,
And
I'd agree.
if you don't, the future is in the professional world is probably not that bright. I'll be amiss if I didn't mention that my team has built, and we recently released it, an AI grader. And I'll show it to you after we wrap up the podcast. AI grader, you just type in the name of your law firm. It will show you how you rank in ChatGPT and Gemini and Perplexity today for all of the relevant keywords, and how you stack up against competition, and give you a list of recommendations. It's a completely free system. It takes 2 to 4 minutes to run. Do not hit the back button. It's literally working with 3 AI systems to pull all that data and present it to you in a very simple to consume format. So check it out. It's AI grader, GRADER, .growlaw.co. Again, AI grader.growlaw.co. It's a really new thing. We tested it back and forth, and it's awesome. Absolutely awesome. So
I'll check
there it
it
is.
out.
All right. Ron, it was a pleasure having you on the podcast.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it, Sasha.